The setting is electrifying Atlantic City, New Jersey, and the event is the prestigious 8th Annual United States Poker Championship. They come from far and wide to compete in this world-class, adrenaline-pumping poker showdown.
That's it, baby!
The stakes are high, but the prize money makes it all worthwhile.
I'm turning this 10 grand into a $250,000 today.
So sit down and ante up.
We're going inside the U.S. Poker Championships. It's going to be great.
Welcome, everybody, to the U.S. Poker Championships, coming to you from the Trump Taj Mahal in Atlantic City, New Jersey. I'm Lon McCarron, along with sports columnist Norman Chad. The 6 players at our final table today should provide for a very fascinating style of play, Norm.
Yeah, it's a different mix of players. We have a couple of Atlantic City pros, but most of our attention will be on 2 of the best players in the world, Phil Hellmuth and Erik Seidel, plus a couple other top tournament players, Toto Leonidas and John Hennigan, who won this tournament last year in a great heads-up duel against Erik Seidel, so we get a rematch of those 2.
Well, if the players look a little weary, it's because they've been through 2 intense days of poker already. But before we leave you today, one of them will walk away with almost $400,000, but more importantly, the title of United States Poker Champion. Let's learn more about our players. In seed 1 with 46,000 chips, the shortest stack at the table is Bao Li, or Trong, as his friends like to call him, an Atlantic City local playing in his first major tournament. With 176,000 in chips, it's last year's champion in seat 2, Johnny World Hennigan. Next to John is Toto Leonidas. Toto begins the day with 435,000 in chips. And taking command of seat number 4 is the 6-time world champion and our chip leader with 686,000, Erik Seidel. The man in seat 5, another world champion, Phil Hellmuth. Phil begins the day second to Seidel in chip count with 515,000. And rounding out the table in seat 6 is another local favorite. From Cedar Grove, New Jersey, we have recreational player Frank Russomanno with 134,000 in chips. The crowd is anxious for what promises to be an exciting matchup.
Let's get ready, shuffle up and deal.
Ready to get action underway at the final table. And Norm, it's always fun to see who ends up here because these guys are very familiar with each other and personalities tend to clash from time to time.
Personalities always clashing with Phil Hellmuth there, but right there we see Erik Seidel and Phil Hellmuth, 2 of the best tournament players in the world and our 2 tournament chip leaders. They have unfinished business with these 2 men. John Hennigan on the left won the title last year against Seidel heads up, and Toto Leonidas and Phil Hellmuth have a lot of history playing a lot of tough hands together.
Now the cards are in the air and we're underway here at Trump Taj Mahal. And Johnny World's gonna fold. Leonidas folds, Erik Seidel folds. It looks like Phil Hellmuth wants to play with his King 5 offsuit. 35,000 is the bet.
Russomanno is gone.
Over to Trong.
And Trong will go all in, Lon. He only had 46,000 left, and he doesn't have much of a choice. The ace-deuce will take him all in.
So the players turn up their cards, and the King 5 is trailing to Bao Li's ace-deuce. Trong with a 61% shot at winning this hand. Now the flop comes 5, 4, and 6. A couple of spades.
And Phil has a pair of 5s, and Trong now is going to need an ace to stay alive in this tournament.
It is a 7.
Now we have a straight draw, so besides an ace or a 3 or an 8 comes out, they'd both have a straight, and Trong would be alive.
Not to be, though. It's a 7. Trong is eliminated. 6th place. A good run for this local player. $43,000 in prize money for him.
I feel bad at the final flop. I think I should have him beat because I have ace high and he only king high. But he just got lucky, flopped the 5 on me. So I'm out of the tournament.
The game we're watching is No Limit Texas Hold'em, the fastest moving and most unpredictable of poker games.
Yeah! Hey! Yeah! Clear! Yeah!
The key to No Limit is that you can bet all of your chips at any time. This is called moving all in.
I'm all in. All in.
You might double your stack, but you're also risking it all on one hand of cards. Here's a quick look at how Texas Hold'em is played. After the ante, each player receives 2 face-down cards of his own, called hole cards. This is followed by a round of betting. Then 3 community cards are dealt to the center of the table. This is known as the flop. Another round of betting. Then the turn card, also called 4th Street, is revealed. Then another round of betting. And the final card, the river card, or 5th Street, is exposed. The players then use the community cards and their hole cards to form the best possible hand of 5. We are down now to just 5 players at the final table here at the United States Poker Championships, and there you get a good look at the hole cards of Toto Leonidas, and we have to stress that none of the players or the fans here in the house can see the hole cards, just you at home. So you're the ones that have the advantage.
Toto opens the pot for 35,000.
Phil is going to play with his ace-king offsuit.
Raise.
Phil is going to raise, and sometimes he likes to soft play against Toto and let Toto do most of the betting, but this time he's going to be aggressive with the ace-king. He is in a commanding position, doesn't know it, against the ace-queen.
And that is Frank Russomanno. He will fold. John Hennigan folds, so now just Toto and Phil. And you see Phil with a 72% chance of winning this hand. Toto has to decide exactly what he wants to do against the big man Hellmuth.
How much is that? 95. 95?
Toto usually very deliberate, but he combines being deliberate with being aggressive. When he acts, he loves to come over the top of the other players quite often. It bothers them a lot. They never quite know what he has.
I'm gonna raise.
Toto
Raise.
A raise. He's called the 95.
I love his unpredictable nature.
I'm all in.
And he's all in.
Oh, he's all in.
Looks like he's going to
Phil Hellmuth says count it. He wants to know what he's up against.
And that's disturbing to Phil Hellmuth, double-checking to make sure he doesn't have aces himself. He might have misread his cards.
Looks like 345, yeah.
Hey, it looks like 345 because it probably is.
I think we're all in agreement.
You can't argue with that thinking. Phil's got the better hand, but he just doesn't know.
And he gives it up.
Wow!
Phil turns up the ace.
I thought I got the best hand.
Wow.
Oh!
Phil taking it well, as always.
Toto turns up ace-queen. Phil folding. Toto wins.
You know you're gonna run over me somehow, yeah?
And the rocky history between these two gets even bumpier.
Toto, I'm gonna let you run me over again, okay, bud? I'm gonna let you keep running me over and running me over. But eventually, I'm gonna show you something.
Phil has suffered some bad beats by Toto, and this hand may have just set the stage for some fireworks later to come here at the Taj. Welcome back to the U.S. Poker Championships. 5 players left. Erik Seidel and Toto Leonidas pulling away from the pack. John Hennigan, the short stack at 133,000. At this point, last year's champ really has a steep hill to climb, but this is a guy who is used to many challenges. Growing up on the streets of South Philadelphia, John had a lot of time to cultivate his gambling skills. At an early age, before going into poker, John earned his keep as a pool shark. He says he now prefers poker to pool because of its many nuances and its lack of predictability.
You're going to make some mistakes that in pool, you know, I just didn't make after a while. I mean, I just practiced like 8 hours a day, so I didn't make that mistake because, you know, it was just muscle memory or whatever it is. Poker, I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to look at somebody, I'm going to read them wrong, or I'm going to read them right and do the opposite for whatever reason, just because I acted too fast. I mean, I'd make a lot more mistakes in poker than I would in pool.
Well, so far, the defending champion has not made many mistakes, as evidenced by his second straight appearance at the final table.
And that shouldn't be underrated, Lon. To get to the final table 2 straight years is an awesome, awesome accomplishment.
Phil Hellmuth folds, Frank Russomanno folds. Now it is Johnny World. He'll play with the Jack King.
And Toto will muck his cards. It sometimes seems like Toto plays every hand, but he doesn't. He takes 1 or 2 off. Erik Seidel, meanwhile, deciding whether to act, always very studied, almost a pained expression at the table.
The thinker. And he'll play it, and he's going to put John Hennigan all in. Should John want to go there?
Yeah, not much choice for World. Very few chips. King Jack, decent to go all in. He does see he's behind the ace-4 suited. Erik the favorite.
59% chance of Seidel to win this hand. And now the flop comes 2, 3, Jack. Hennigan with a couple of jacks.
World takes the lead with the jacks, but ace 2, 3, 4 for Erik, so there is a straight draw for Seidel now.
And here comes the turn card. It is a 5. Seidel
Ouch.
gets his straight and the victory over Hennigan.
Yeah, Hennigan would be drawing dead on the river. The last card is irrelevant. Last year, Hennigan knocked out Erik Seidel. This year, the reverse occurs.
And it still hurts.
It was unbearable, as always. I mean, when you get knocked out, it's just unbearable. You know, just sliding up from that table, I can't stand it. You know, you walk over and they hand you the 50,000. It eases the pain a little bit, but, you know, you want to win. Because no matter what, winning's everything.
We have been having a heck of a time trying to get a good look at Erik Seidel's hole cards all day long here at the final table. So much so that we finally decided to add a second hidden camera to try to corner him into showing his cards, but the cagey Seidel, well, found new ways to elude us.
There were a couple of times that when I was conscious of the cameras that I didn't want to show exactly what I had. I really don't want to have a few million people seeing how the game is played. I think that that was part of the appeal to poker is there is that mystery, and people have never been able to see cards, and they've just had to learn by playing.
Well, I think he's overthinking the thing a little bit there, Norb.
Yeah, he's wrong on this one, Lon. He's swimming upstream without a hand. The genie's out of the bottle on that. You know, if he doesn't want to show his cards, I guess Erik should just play poker on radio then, because this is the way it's going to be.
And it's working for the rest of them so far. Phil Hellmuth is going to play. He bets 40,000 with a king-queen suited. Over to Frank Russomanno with 2 10s.
I'm all in.
And he's going to put it all in with 2 10s and Seidel behind him.
Yeah, that's the right play. Pocket 10's a very good hand when you have to go all in for about 140,000.
Well, Seidel with the ace-king. How hard does he want to push?
Raise.
So he's now going to raise Phil Hellmuth behind him.
I'll tell you that much.
Well, 200,000 is the raise for Erik Seidel. Phil Hellmuth gets out of the hand.
So it will be heads up now with the pocket 10s, a slight favorite over the ace-king. And Frank playing for his tournament life.
And sweating it out.
Frank looks like he's preparing for a cigarette and a blindfold.
I had the king-queen of clubs.
Yeah, okay, here comes the flop. Russomanno, the most interested observer here. 7, 8, and ace. 2 aces for Seidel.
That was the cigarette. Now he's got to wait on the blindfold. He's now behind. He's going to need a 10 to come up on the turn of the river to stay alive.
The 3 on the turn is no help to anybody. The river card comes up, an 8 of hearts, no help. Frank Russomanno is eliminated. A 4th place finish. The 2 locals knocked out by 2 of the biggest names of the game today.
Financially, I did well. I won $68,000. Educationally, I played against some of the best players in the world, and I really learned a lot. And just from a pure entertainment standpoint, I had a good time over the 3 days. I enjoy playing poker, and in tournament poker, this is what it's all about, getting to the final table and playing it out. So you can't do any better than that, other than winning the tournament.
We are down now to just 3. Phil Hellmuth, Erik Seidel, and Toto Leonidas. And, oh, there's 100,000 between first and third. It's a horse race.
It's any one of them. And what a group. Hellmuth has 9 World Series championships, Seidel 6, and Toto won his first one this year in 7-card stud. So it's a great quality group.
Toto Leonidas will be the first to act with a Queen-Jack offsuit. And looking very confident indeed.
Again, I said, oh, he's deliberate, but he is confident, and he plays a lot of hands and plays them in a variety of ways.
I'd like to see him heads up against somebody like Sam Farha, who likes to play a lot of hands too. And boy, you'd see the chips fly.
Well, Toto has it at 51,000 bet here.
Erik Seidel folded, gets out of the fray between Leonidas and Hellmuth. Phil with a nice hand and a big advantage.
Pocket queens, and it's a great position against Toto, and he's just going to call this time. A different type of play.
Taking a page out of Toto's book, is he? A little unpredictability. Here comes the flop. It is 8, 3, and 7.
No help to either player.
You see the 93 percentage for Phil Hellmuth over Toto.
Toto, that's 80,000.
Toto's still firing. And Phil, again, just calling, and maybe he's trying to trap Toto into making a big bet at the end when Phil will have the nuts. Let's see.
Here comes the turn card. King of clubs. Hellmuth now does have the hand 1. Now we'll see how they bet it.
Toto looks like he's the one who's going to act. Oh, 200,000 he fires out, and that's got to concern Phil. The king might worry him because an aces would beat him, or if Toto had a king.
How much more do you have left?
You know, Lon, I wish just once when somebody was asked that question by Phil, they'd say, you come over and count it. I'm going to go to the steam room.
Well, Toto's just got about that many chips. It'll take that long. He's only got 9 outs in the hand. Definitely the underdog here is Toto Leonidas, but he's got the big bet on the table.
And he has stacked his remaining chips, and Phil is showing his queens, and he's mucking them.
And Toto once again gets the best of Phil Hellmuth.
You know, I heard some of the stories about how lucky Toto was. He made this outdraw, he made that outdraw, and I played with him a lot. And if you look at his record, he hasn't made very many no-limit hold'em final tables because he's just too reckless. He can't throw away hands. He can't fold a hand. So against Toto, all you have to do is play a big hand, check it to him 3 or 4 times, and he'll just bluff, bluff, bluff. I figured that out. I just forgot to call him.
To be a great player, you really have to combine all the skills possible. You have to be able to read your opponents. You have to have the analytical skill to know how you're supposed to play the hand. And you have to be able to tell when your opponents are going on tilt a little bit, when they're playing, you know, when they're playing a little bit differently than they should, or when they're playing a little bit differently than they normally play.
To help them mask some of these signs, many players like to cover up, wearing sunglasses and hats. This not only conceals their own reactions, it allows them to covertly examine other players' expressions and body language. Meanwhile, everyone tries to avoid sending out unwanted subliminal messages, keeping their poker face on, while at the same time looking for any clue their opponent may be revealing.
One of the ways I find tells in my opponents is actually by looking inside myself. I try and be aware of what it is that I'm doing when I'm bluffing. And then I look for that same kind of action in my opponents.
Certainly, like, you know, the hand shaking, sort of being nervous usually means they have a good hand. You know, just some facial expressions, some grimaces, those kind of things. Very subtle grimace might mean that they're not happy with a card that just came up.
How they bet their hands, how they break their chips, little moves they make, that's all. Just, everybody has their own little quirks.
Well, Norm, I know this is all about money, but do you think Phil would rather read a player correctly or win the hand?
He'd like to do both. He'll tell you that 1, he never misreads a hand, and 2, he only loses when there's an injustice.
Indeed, indeed. All right, so the whole cards of Toto Leonidas turn up an ace-7, and he looks like he does want to play. Toto Leonidas will bet 50,000 chips on that ace-7. Erik Seidel decides that he does not want to play, and then over to Phil Hellmuth, and he does have a Queen-Jack offsuit.
Yeah, and Erik almost is just a eyewitness to all the high noon showdowns between these two guys right now.
And not a bad move on his part either, as Phil calls, And so with those hole cards, Leonidas with a 58% chance of winning. Here comes the flop. It's queen, 7, and 8. Phil Hellmuth now with a pair of queens.
A better flop for Phil than Toto. He has top pair with queens. Toto has bottom pair with 7s. And Phil has checked, perhaps trying to bait Toto into betting and making a mistake.
Phil, a 4-to-1 advantage to win this hand right now.
All in.
And all in, says Toto Leonidas, with just a pair of 7s. He did pair the board with the 7s.
This is what Phil wants.
Nope, no glasses. I'll turn the hat, but I won't put the glasses on.
Why would you bet so much, Toto?
That's from the Phil Hellmuth Book of Irritating Questions.
Why would you bet so much?
And that is a good question. He knows he has top pair. He just has to believe he has Toto beat right now.
I call.
Phil Hellmuth will go all in and put his chips at risk.
And he's at a big advantage. This is what he's been waiting for against Toto.
We go to the turn. It's a 6, no help. Leonidas needs an ace or a 7 on the river. It's a 7, and he got it. 3 7s for Toto Leonidas eliminates Phil Hellmuth.
Oh, and look at Phil. Phil might want to consider video poker. Not as many bad beats, Lon.
And taking it so well as always.
Like, I went crazy when he eliminated me. And I guess that's good television. I'm embarrassed for the way I acted. But, you know, I mean, it's just so hard. You know, when you outplay someone so badly, you know what I mean? And they get all their money in such a bad spot and they hit that card. Oh, my God. I mean, what can you do? I mean, he tried to bluff off his money 5 or 6 times. This time I picked him off and he outdrew me. I mean, that's frustrating.
So with Phil Hellmuth out of the running, we are down to 2 players here at the final table of the United States Poker Championships. On one side of the table, 6-time world champion Erik Seidel. Don't expect too many mistakes from Seidel because he's been to plenty of final tables.
Well, you get used to it after a while. You know, there are some tournaments that are so big where it's really exciting and really juicy, and you know, usually the big tournaments are a little bit more exciting. But it really gets interesting when you get down close.
Now, it's even more interesting when there's so much riding on it at this year's U.S. Poker Championships. Besides the title, the winner takes home stacks of cash, adding up to about $388,000. As is tradition, when the field is thinned to 2 players, the prize money is brought out and displayed for all to see. And then it's dropped onto the table to give the players a little added incentive. So here we go, heads up for the championship. Erik Seidel, once again, one of the final 2, just as he was last year. There we do get a good look at Erik's cards, 8 and 4. He will just call the big blind. Toto Leonidas with an ace-jack suited. He'll check, and here we go with the flop. It is jack, 9, and 6. Leonidas with a pair of jacks.
And far ahead in the hand, but Erik playing a little aggressively. He's going to try to turn his rags to riches with a bet.
It's 21,000 on the table to Toto, and he'll call it. Leonidas with a huge advantage in the hand right now. The turn card is jack. Leonidas actually has won the hand, but nobody knows it yet. 3 jacks. Checks again.
He cannot be beat, and he's playing it very soft. He's changing it up. Erik can't know that. Erik's picked a bad spot to try to bluff out here, and he's bluffing again.
Erik puts 75,000 chips on the table. Leonidas now goes into the acting.
Again, Erik is drawing dead. There's no card he can get to beat. And again, Toto plays it soft and is just going to call him.
And here comes the river. It is an ace.
Well, he didn't need help, but he now has a jack's full boat over aces, does Toto Leonidas. And this time he looks like he might want to act.
We have seen him be very deliberate. He's deliberate in a lot of ways. When at the World Series of Poker in Vegas, he went to church before the final table of the 7-card stud, almost missed the beginning of the deal.
Lon, Melville wrote Moby Dick in less time than it takes Toto to make a bet. Look at him. He's trying to figure out how much he can bet that Eric might call. There's nothing Eric's going to be able to call because Eric has no hand. He made nothing.
Just making Seidel twist in the wind right now. And so he'll put out 300,000 chips. It won't take long for Eric to say no.
A court order couldn't make Eric call this. There's really no decision here. He just had an itch on the nose. That's about it.
He's got to
taking
play
care
a
of the
little
itch.
bit. But no. Takes the chips off the cards and throws in. And a big win for Toto Leonidas. Eric has his hands full with that guy sitting next to him at up-and-comer Toto Leonidas. Toto's a family man who lives in Los Angeles. When he's not on the road playing tournament poker, he can usually be found spending time with his daughters, Pauline and Kathleen.
Somebody drop at $20, they might come back.
He says that the flexibility professional poker provides is one of its best features.
This is the one thing I like about poker because, you know, you got your, your own time. You can go anywhere you want, and, you know, you don't have to be there every day.
Toto has a circle of family and friends that support what he does, and he says that really helps him. He even gets his brother and friends involved in a hard-charging basketball game before big tournaments to help work out the anxiety and frustrations that are inherent to the high-stakes poker world.
Before I start playing poker, I always reminded myself that, you know, to control my emotion and just focus on the game and relax as much as I can. You have to control your emotion, you know, at poker. If not, it really affects your game. I lost a lot before, you know, when I get mad with somebody and, you know, it blows your concentration.
Toto Leonidas becoming a much more mature poker player and beginning to show how good he is here at the United States Poker Championships. Erik Seidel with an 8-queen. Leonidas with an ace-queen.
Toto with the advantage.
And here comes the flop. A couple of 8s and a 7. Seidel now with a set of 8s.
Oh, yeah, and a big advantage. It was Toto, now Eric with the big advantage. Eric only betting 25,000. Toto's going to call it. That's a loose call. He didn't get any piece of that flop. I might call that at a 50-cent dollar game at my clinic that I play in every week, but that's a loose call at this level.
The clinic? You haven't told me that story yet. On the turn, we have an ace of spades to Erik Seidel.
So that gives Toto the aces and 8s now, but of course the 3 8s from Eric are in the command position.
Seidel with a 95% advantage right now on Toto Leonidas. That was a tough turn card for Toto.
Well, yeah, it made sure that he's going to stay in this hand, I believe, and only an ace will bail him out. He is virtually dead in the hand, but I think he likes seeing that ace, and it's going to make him call in all probability.
How many players do you know with 2 aces are going to throw it away, too?
It's tough to throw away. He's got to think he might have the best hand.
So he'll call it, and here comes the river card. It's a 3, no help. So Erik Seidel does have the hand 1. Now we'll see how they bet it.
160.
We hear he's going to bet 160. And Toto must figure, you know, if Eric doesn't have an ace, like I do, I've got the best hand. He can't put him on an 8 in the pocket.
And we saw just a hand or so ago Leonidas in the reverse position here. Well, he was wondering how much to bet on that river card to bring Eric into play. And now Eric's decided 160 is enough to get Toto to play.
And looks like he's going to be right.
And he does indeed. He'll call it. This pot is over 500,000 chips now. And he turns it over. Seidel shows his set of 8s. And Erik Seidel has taken over the chip leadership here at the U.S. Poker Championships. A big win for him there. There you see the chip count. As we said, Erik Seidel in the lead. but the pots are getting bigger and bigger, and one or two hands will make all the difference. And switch those around in a hurry. Toto Leonidas with a Jack-7, and he will call the big blind. Erik Seidel with a Queen and 9 will check, and here comes the flop. The flop is Queen, 7, Jack, and what a flop it is.
It is. It's bad news for somebody, Lon, and it's not you or me. Erik has a pair of queens, top pair, and Toto has 2 pair, so they're both going to want a piece of this.
An amazing amount of good cards coming out in this two-handed final.
Toto, now the favorite in the hand, bets 50,000. You know, Lon, these guys don't really chat that much. They could be in an elevator together for 3 hours, and I doubt you'd hear either one of them cough. Erik, though, does put his chips out, and he's going to raise.
Erik Seidel, a raise of 100,000. And you see Leonidas at 70% has the upper hand so far. And he does not take that much time to call it. The turn card is a 4 of diamonds.
Erik still with top pair, but Toto ahead with 2 pair.
3 1/4.
Wow.
3 1/4. That's going to bring this pot to over 600,000 chips, the biggest by far of the tournament. And the chip stacks were so even going into this. Somebody
this
was
is a
destined
crucial,
to make a big move.
Crucial hand, and Erik is pushing his top pair. He wants to push Toto out of the hand.
I'm all in.
And he'll go all in.
You pushed him all in. He backed him into a corner, and Leonidas comes out fighting.
And it's a tough decision now for Erik Seidel. As usual, because of Toto's very unusual play, he doesn't know what he has. He's actually behind in the hand right now, Erik Seidel, but he has top pair, and it's just a tough spot. He's put a lot of chips into the pot already. He doesn't want to lay this down.
It is Leonidas.
I call.
Oh, he's going to call. And it is Leonidas who was all in. Should he lose the hand, Erik Seidel will win this tournament.
Erik will need a queen, a 9, or a 4 on the river to knock him out.
Here comes 5th Street. It is a 6 of diamonds. Toto Leonidas wins the biggest hand of the tournament.
That was a very difficult hand. The problem with the hand is I have top pair, but I don't have a great kicker. And top pair is also not that great a hand if he has something bigger. Because there's so many possible draws out there, I felt like I had to bet it aggressively. And then what happened was I had so many chips in there that I was committed to the pot once he raised. So I ended up really in a bad spot.
No. You know what I want you to do? Cut the cucumber. That's probably the best thing that you can do for me.
If anyone can fight his way out of a tough spot, it's Erik Seidel. He's one of only a handful of players that are successful year in and year out. Erik and his wife Rua have made a nice life for themselves through Erik's poker. Even before he became a pro poker player, these two were no strangers to the lifestyle of a gambler.
You want to double the stakes?
Let's go 500 a point.
For a time, Erik played professional backgammon for a living and even gambled on Wall Street. But Rua says they've reached a point in his career where they don't feel the financial pressures like they used to.
A win is not going to change our lives, or losses aren't going to break us. So, you know, everything's just a lot more even keel. You know, the big tournaments, if he wins or if he makes it to a final table, that's great. If he doesn't, you know, he comes home and life goes on, you know, just as normally as it has.
Well, Norm, she says that with a kitchen knife in her hand, so I think Erik might have a little more motivation than she's letting on.
Don't mention knives and marriages to me, Lon.
All right, Erik Seidel, hole cards 7-5 offsuit. He's reaching for chips. I'm not sure his wife's going to be too proud of that.
No, he's raising with Goodwill Industry cards.
Toto with a queen 10 of diamonds.
Always a good hand, and particularly in a heads up, that's a very, very good hand.
What's Eric's motivation at this point?
Well, again, you got to change up your play. He's just taking a stab right there. He has nothing.
All right, well, Toto calls. Here's the flop. A couple of sixes out there. And a deuce.
This time they both check, and both have very little.
Turn card's a 7 of diamonds. So Leonidas with a diamond draw now. Queen high.
But Eric picks up a pair of 7s to give him 2 pair now in the hand.
And a flip-flop, and the advantage went from Leonidas 72 now to Seidel 68% advantage in this hand.
I'm all in.
And Toto Leonidas is going to go all in with a diamond draw.
And he's actually putting Eric all in. He has him covered in chips, and he's got to put Eric to the test now if Eric wants to call this. For Toto, Lon, here, it's a semi-bluff. He doesn't want to call, but he still could make his hand a flush. For Eric, it's another tough decision. It's kind of hard to lay down in this spot, but we just saw him call with the top pair of queens, where he ended up losing to 2 pair. It's a tough decision for him.
I call.
Cool. He's going to call. And once again, Eric Seidel has put all his chips at risk against Toto Leonidas. Here comes the river card. It's a 7, and he's got the full house. Eric Seidel wins with 7s over 6s and doubles up his chips. Big hand for Eric Seidel. Well, Norm, Leonidas still with the chip count over Eric Seidel, 1.2 to 765,000. I think that last hand was huge for Eric because I'm wondering if he could possibly take out some of the sting of the unpredictable nature with which Toto plays.
I don't know, Toto is pretty consistent that way. He stays unpredictable no matter what his position is.
There you see the hole cards. An ace-jack for Seidel. Raises to 50. Toto Leonidas with a 4-5. Calls. Here comes the flop. It is ace-10 and 5. Toto pairs his 5s.
And Eric pairs the aces. He's in the lead.
76% chance for Eric to take this hand at this moment.
Toto looks like he's going to quickly call. I don't know why I thought he was going to do something quickly. He may even be raising. I don't know.
He does indeed call the Seidel bet of 65,000. Here the turn card, 3 of diamonds. Leonidas with a straight draw needs a 2 to complete it. He'll check over to Eric.
You know, sometimes it feels like we're keeping Eric up. I love the guy, Lon, but here he is playing for the U.S. Poker Championship, and he appears to be waiting in line at DMV.
And sometimes the fees that I pay at DMV are that big. 130,000 from Eric Seidel.
He has a pair of aces, Toto has a pair of 5s, and a gut shot straight draw.
Well, this is where Toto can really now start to put the screws to Eric Seidel. Even though Eric has the advantage in this hand, Eric cannot put him on anything. He has no idea what Toto has, even though Eric was successful in the previous hand. As you mentioned, he comes out, it's like a fresh slate, just as unpredictable.
Well, he says he's going to raise. Yeah, he says he's going to raise, and that woke Eric up.
470,000 on the pot, and Carl's raising.
Pot nearing.
Raising 200,000.
Wow.
It's 200,000 more to Eric Seidel, who tries to look through the cards to find out what Toto has.
Yeah, Toto really has had 2 of the best tournament players in the world, Phil Hellmuth and Eric Seidel, just baffled and frustrated today. It's just tough for them to get a read on him.
I mean, what's Eric thinking? He's suckered in, or he's got the best cards? That's really the only 2 ways.
Got to hand it to Toto. I mean, bold play, erratic betting patterns, bad cards.
Oh, look at that. Eric Seidel throws in his cards. He has an 80% chance to win that hand, and he folds to Toto Leonidas.
Toto is different from a lot of other great players, and that's what makes him a little bit more challenging. He's tricky. I would say he's more difficult to play against than anyone else at that final table. Toto's strengths are that he will play hands in unusual ways. It's very difficult to put him on a hand because he'll bet them differently. He's a very, very clever player, very tricky.
Erik Seidel, obviously, with a lot more respect for Toto Leonidas than Phil Hellmuth, Lon. Erik thinks he's a pro's pro, and Phil treats him like he's a puppy nipping at his ankles.
Seidel with a 3 and king offsuit. He'll call the big blind. Toto Leonidas, queen 8. He checks. Here's the flop. 9, 10, and 5.
Nothing much there. A gut shot straight draw for Toto.
Leonidas checks. Seidel bets 30,000 with a king high.
He's got nothing. He's throwing out a little bluff.
Tough time to bluff when you're down this much.
Yeah, it is. It's tough to bluff a bluffer, and the bluffer has called.
Here's the turn card, 6 of clubs. Seidel with a 68% advantage right now over Leonidas.
He has a king high, neither has anything. Toto still with that straight draw. Not a whole lot there. 110, did he say?
He did indeed.
He's gonna fire another shot.
Toto Leonidas still on a straight draw. And now the action to him. Toto already reaching for his chips.
And we've seen many times today when he reaches with those left hand with for those chips, he will be playing eventually. Before or after sunset, we don't know, but he's going to be in the hand, and he has nothing.
Toying with Erik Seidel right now, even though Seidel has the advantage in the hand, as he did in the previous hand.
Yeah. At this point, Erik says, I should have gone to law school. This is very, very tough on him.
But it's amazing to watch how Toto Leonidas has dominated these two players that you mentioned, Seidel and Hellmuth, even though he's the one who's the underdog.
Yeah, but psychologically, he controls the pace of the action, and he keeps them off balance.
Oh, 220?
You know, that's stunning. You know, Erik fired with a handgun, and Toto came back with a rifle. They're both bluffing. I mean, it just looks like Erik needs an antacid and a priest. He's got him screwed into the ground, Lon.
He does indeed. Erik Seidel, even though he has the advantage, of course he doesn't know that, but the great player that he is has to have some instinct. But Toto Leonidas has thrown him off, got him on tilt almost, I think.
Well, he has thrown off his instincts because Erik Seidel has a great read on most players. But today, Toto has been having the advantage, and again...
Oh, look at that. Over the last two hands, Erik has bet over 300,000 in chips with the advantage and has lost both of those hands. Back at the Taj Mahal, Toto Leonidas working his way towards the potential championship. Erik Seidel down to his last 282,000 chips.
He still could double up 2 straight times against Toto and be back in the chip lead.
That's what I love about this game. Erik Seidel with an ace-jack offsuit, cards you cannot throw away, shorthanded and behind.
Short stack, heads up, you gotta love those cards.
He'll bet 65,000.
All in.
No. Well, moment of truth.
Erik with another decision to make. Does he want to put all his chips in right here on ace-jack?
Shoot. 160, 170. What do I got?
See, Toto, I got him right where I want him, he said.
I have to call. I call.
So Erik Seidel will call.
And correctly.
Like, why not? He's got the lead. Decent cards. Needs to double up. Here comes the flop. Flop comes 8, 8, 9.
A gut shot straight draw now for Toto. A queen or a 10 on the turn would give him the lead over Erik and push Erik towards the door.
Seidel still with the advantage right now. Here comes a turn card. It's a queen, and Leonidas with 2 queens takes a huge advantage.
And now Erik is down to an ace or a 10 on the river, else we are done.
to survive.
One more card in this hand. Here comes on the river. It's a 4 of diamonds. Not good enough for Erik Seidel. Toto Leonidas wins the U.S. Poker Championship. They called him lucky, crafty, or tricky, but in the end, it came down to his heart. He knew he had the best cards, and it won him nearly $400,000 there.
He got lucky when he knocked out Phil Hellmuth, but he's really played a lot of skillful poker today. Erik Seidel not moping about finish second. He'll go home still with nearly $250,000.
So after 3 grueling, intense days of poker action here at the Trump Taj Mahal, it is Toto Leonidas who emerges as the victor. And Norm, for the casual or new poker fan, he may be a new name, but for the people inside, no surprise that he was there at the end.
No surprise at all. He is tournament tough, and Toto has won other big tournaments before. What's even more impressive is that when you get down to a final table with Phil Hellmuth and Erik Seidel, and you're the last man standing, that's a good day's work.
All right, so congratulations to Toto Leonidas, who carries the day here at the U.S. Poker Championships. That's going to do it for now. For Norm and Chad, I'm Lon McCarran. So long, everybody.